The big flashy brand moments are the ones that are the most sexy and the most fun and the most expressive, but it's the smaller touch points that a lot of businesses forget, but they really do matter. My name is Abriana, and I'm the founder and principal consultant at Black Unicorn Creative, and our work is aligning who you say you are with what you do and how people experience you. And so we do this in a multitude of ways through coaching, consulting, leadership development, and executive retreats. And today's video is talking about the small moments. Those smaller touch points that really go underinvested in and oftentimes can make a big difference. The ones that are shaping trust in your business are the ones that aren't as sexy. They're not as big and expressive. They're not activations or big displays, right? They're those small links, the links that make those things happen. And so when we talk about brand touch points, that's like the industry term for it, right? Those small moments are touch points. How do those touch points influence the perception of your business? So some of those bigger touch points, bigger brand touch points are your website, your social media, your sales decks, your store, your brick and mortar. Sorry, I'm like, all of a sudden my eye is really itching. But those are the big things that you can invest in, but the smaller things like how you follow up with people, your emails, your customer support, how your team meetings are structured, and your invoices. It's those little moments that link those big things together that cumulatively have a big influence on how our businesses run. And so I want to share some of those touch points that you can think about and that I haven't been having to think about in my own business, to the touch points that really like influence whether or not, or influence the perception someone has of my brand and my business. Recently I submitted a proposal for some consulting work, my goodness. And I thought through how I wanted to put this proposal together, whether or not I was going to do a big design for it, or was it gonna just be a Google Doc? Like, what was the spectrum of design forward that the proposal was going to be? And I decided for this proposal, I was just gonna do a Google Doc. I was gonna lean on the air of simplicity and professionalism just because of the type of work that it was. But then when I'm like leaning into my more creative work, that's when I would do a more design forward proposal. And so before a client even pays, the way that you present yourself and the way that you follow up and communicate during the sales process is so critical. And it's those small moments that can say, okay, if I'm going to present myself as a premium, as a very professional business, then my communication before I even get the business has to match that. If there is a contradiction there, then that is going to shape the perception of me and my business before the client even converts. And we're all about building businesses and building brands on purpose around here. And that's something that you can influence and that you can do on purpose. I know a lot of startups are in the pitching process. And so there's pitch decks and iterations of everything. When we are entering these conversations, we have to adjust. We have to adjust. So if you are looking at that, like your sales process and your proposal process, and if you are historically seeing that you lose people, that people drop off, if you don't have a CRM that is doing some following up or notifying you to follow up, that's a big part of your system that you might need to take a look at to say, okay, what is the perception of our business in this container, and how can we influence that to be more on brand? That leads directly into like the waiting period. Like when someone is waiting for something, when there is silence, that is still a message. And this is why I say, your brand will happen to you whether you build it or not. Culture will happen to you whether you build it or not. You are to decide if you were going to build it or if you were going to let it happen to you. And so the waiting, the silence is oftentimes still a message. So when there's silence between communication, whether you've just submitted a proposal or a project has been paused or you're in between meetings, like that is still an event. And so if you don't put expectation in it, then you risk your clients not really feeling like you're going to prioritize them or that you're even interested. So I know, there is a practice that I do when I'm trying to, after I've submitted something, do I get a confirmation, yay or nay? If I get a confirmation, then based on what that confirmation is, I'll say, okay, I'll follow up in this time frame. If I don't get a confirmation, I ask for one to say, hey, just want to make sure you received it. If I don't hear anything from you, I'll be following up in this day. And that sets the expectation, right? And it's up to me to show up in that time frame to do whatever it's I say that I was going to do. And so another kind of proposal situation that I'm in, that the team said, hey, I know that we talked about this, but something has shifted within the organization. We're going to have to follow up on this in April. And so here it is, April, and I will be following up with them today to say, hey, I know a lot has changed. Is this still a priority for you? If not, let's set some expectations on when we should communicate again, or what has changed and can I assist you with that? And so it is my goal to make my business seem invested in theirs, or I am invested in their success, actually, even though they're not even my clients. But I want to ensure that they know that I will be there to follow up. And they say, okay, we got to make a decision about this girl because she's going to follow up. One of the other small moments is like invoicing and financial documents. Where does your brand show up in those communications, right? On the documentation, on the communication, that is a touch point that shapes perception, right? Whether you're having to submit a purchase order or just sending an invoice on your own, yes, sometimes you might have to work within the system that the client has set up, in which it's that follow-up and that communication that's really in that bucket there. But if you are able to send your own invoices, or it's something that's custom to your business, then that's an opportunity to shape perception. And that's really what brand building is about. One of my favorite, I can't even say favorite because my anxiety is too bad to be doing crisis communication. But one of my favorite ways lately to think of how a brand can show up for their customers is in how they recover from mistakes. I have been inside of businesses that have made mistakes. I've made mistakes within my own business, and I have had to really be intentional about how I recover from that. I remember listening to a video, I can't even place it, but the woman it was about meditation. And she was saying that her clients get upset or oftentimes complain about how their mind wanders when they're meditating. And she said, no, the mind wandering is not that big of a deal, but clearly you have a feeling about that. Like that's telling you something about yourself. You believe something about yourself because of your mind wandering or your inability to meditate correctly. She said, if I gave you $1 for every time you came back, every time your mind wandered and you came back, would you feel better about coming back? And the client was like, yeah, I would come back quickly. And her saying that completely changed how I was thinking about the comeback. I mean, because baby, a couple of these days have been missed, all right? But the comeback, if you got $1 every time you came back, and came back correctly, and came back with intention, you would be rich. There would be less emphasis and shame put on the mistake, and there would be more reward in the return. And so when you are recovering from mistakes, how you fail is a brand moment. It can be a small moment. It can be a big moment. It can be a big mistake. But even in the smaller mistakes, how you come back, how you recover, defines your brand. And oftentimes more than the actual mistake does, because a business that's able to handle failure with grace and accountability is actually one that people can trust. And that's what brand building is. It's establishing that trust relationship. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect, but it is the comeback that matters more. Lastly or not even lastly, these things are external, right? We're going to get to some internal ones too. But how you offboard clients. I know a lot of times we talk about onboarding clients and making sure they have everything they need and yada da 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 da. Oftentimes how you offload them is just as important, especially when we get into conversations about retention and creating loyalty and having them come back when they need something else. Companies obsess over onboarding. And I have made this mistake also. Because sometimes, depending on how things are ended, it's like, good riddance. Just kidding. But the offboarding is just as impactful because we want to have that quality testimonial. We want to be able to outline the impact of our work together and sum that up so the client feels like, yes, there's a sense of completion there. How you handle, you know, clients leaving, subscriptions ending contracts, that's that last taste. It's that last taste. It's that last drink of tea. It is that last bit. And you don't want to leave an aftertaste. You don't want to leave something lingering that is unpleasant. Because if they had to choose to get that drink again, the drink of your business, they might not choose it again because of that lingering aftertaste. You following me with the metaphors? That came off the dome, came off the top of the head. Touch points, though, are not just external. Oftentimes, the internal touch points are just as important as the external ones. Because your employees impact how your customers experience your business. So if your employees are not experiencing on brand or brand aligned moments on the inside of the business, it's not too far-fetched to understand why it's not happening on the outside. And so how you communicate internally definitely impacts the culture of your organization. What does that look like in meetings? What does that look like for the frequency of meetings, the impact of the meetings, what gets actually done from meetings? Even in smaller companies, I think sometimes we underestimate how impactful using our time wisely is. And so if you, again, I said it earlier, your culture happens whether you build it or not. These brand building efforts are truly requiring intention. And so when you are meeting, when you are asking for people's time, how are you best using it? Are you sending out agenda notes ahead of the meeting? Are you setting up follow-ups? How are you holding people accountable to what they're saying that they're going to complete within the meeting? What does that communication look like? What does success look like? What does it look like when someone fails and needs to recover? What are those conversations? And those conversations are a huge part in how you retain people. How are you working to keep a talent? Because right now we are in this race for talent, especially in the age of AI, especially with the economy going the way that it is. We are not only racing for talent, the job market is doing a lot right now, but we are also trying to keep the talent and keep the business wisdom within the business, because of the people that you have working for you. There are alternatives. There are alternatives, especially as we're navigating conversations of burnout, of pay equity, of just equality and expectation and values and understanding what's important to people. The race for talent, or the attempt to keep talent, is a priority for a lot of businesses right now. So what are those employee retention efforts? I was listening to a video not too long ago, and the woman was talking about a stay interview. A lot of people have these at your like performance reviews, things like that. There's like an actual interview process, but the way that she phrased it was like a stay interview. Like, what is it? What are we doing well? What is not working well? What are some of the alternatives that you have been considering? And what can we do to get you to stay? And I thought that was a great way to position it to, I mean, even the name of it, a stay interview versus a performance review, it brings different energy and different connotation, even if the goals or the outcomes might be the same. Now, if you're not trying to keep, the employee. Just call it a performance review. And I think that on that vein, the offboarding of employees is very similar to the offboarding of clients. And it's just how people exit shapes the story that they tell about you. That's why Glassdoor is so successful. Because there have been a lot of offboardings that have shaped businesses, especially if they're so volatile that someone believes that they should put something on Glassdoor about it. So these seem like small moments, but this is the difference between an organization looking like polished in public and just is sloppy behind the scenes and sloppy in practice. Those small moments to say, you know, bang, we got this big, beautiful storefront. We got this big, beautiful brand activation. Our social media is amazing. But when you actually interact with us, we drop the ball. We don't follow up. The items that you receive from us aren't of the brand standard that may have attracted you to us in the first place. That our delivery is just not on par with what you expected from what you saw on the front end. Like, those are the moments where we have to say, okay, this feels small, but it's a link. It's a link between these big moments, and it is important for us to pay attention to those. So I suggest to you to pick 3 touch points, 3 moments in the business that seem really, really small, and think about how those things impact your larger business, and think about what you can improve to make them more brand aligned and make them really just connect the dots and thread the needle. And prioritize which ones are going to be the most impactful for your client experience, your customer experience, and how your business operates as a whole. Thanks again for joining me on this 30 days of brand alignment. It's 30 days because you're going to get 30 videos on days, okay?